friends! So do you remember that at one point I said that I wasn't going to have a haul for a while and that I wasn't planning on buying very many books this year? Well, I lied. Book Outlet had a huge sale and then it all went downhill from there. So today I'm only going to show you the books that I got from Book Outlet, but it's still a ton of books. So let's get started. First off, I saw that they had a couple of the Puffin in Bloom editions of these classic children's books, Anne of Green Gables, The Little Princess. They did not have Heidi or Little Women. So the one book I'm going to show you that I got, apart from Book Outlet, is Heidi, because it wasn't actually very expensive to just get this single book, and I don't think I want Little Women. But if you haven't noticed, I have a problem. And the problem is that whenever I see a beautiful edition of Anne of Green Gables, I feel compelled to get it. It's a neuroses. I told my husband that this was the last copy of Anne of Green Gables I'd get myself, and he looked at me like I was crazy, and I was like, you know what, you're right. If I see another beautiful edition of Anne of Green Gables, I think I'm probably going to end up getting it, because I can't be stopped. Speaking of which, I also got myself Emily of New Moon and Emily Climbs. I also have other editions of these, and the worst part about this is that I haven't even read these yet, but these editions are the Tundra Books editions with illustrations by Ellie McKay, and they match these editions of Anne of Green Gables, the entire series that I own, also by Tundra Books. These copies are hard to get your hands on in the United States because they're Canadian and they're only sold in Canada. So when I saw these on Book Outlet, I just had to get them. Unfortunately, they didn't have the third book, so I'm still on the hunt for that one. Next, I'm going to show you a few non-fiction books that I got, and I think every single one of these books, except for maybe one, is going to show you that I have kind of a morbid, dark side to me that doesn't really shine through on the booktubes. So the first one that I got is called Working Stiff: 2 Years, 262 Bodies, and the Making of a Medical Examiner, by Judy Melinek and T.J. Mitchell. Judy Melinek is a forensic pathologist in New York City, and this chronicles her time becoming a forensic pathologist, and she began her career 2 weeks before September 11th. So this is about that, being a medical examiner, a forensic pathologist during the September 11th attacks, as well as some other notorious crimes in New York City that took place that she was a part of. This next book I think I got just to freak Julie from A Girl in a Book Out, and that is The Hot Zone: The Terrifying True Story of the Origins of the Ebola Virus. I don't know about you, but when I was in elementary school, I think, I began to hear horror stories about the Ebola virus, and I became completely terrified, but I also think it's really fascinating. And so this book is about a time when the virus appears in Washington, D.C., and what they did to stop it from becoming an epidemic. Then I also got The Psychopath Test by Jon Ronson. I always want to call him Ron Johnson, but it's not Ron Johnson, it's Jon Ronson. So I'm sorry if I mess that up in the future. Jon Ronson. Ron Johnson. Jon Ronson, see, what did I tell you? Jon Ronson was the author of So You've Been Publicly Shamed, which has been talked about a few times on BookTube that I've heard, and I actually have that book on audiobook, but this book sounded really fascinating. It is about psychopaths and how psychopathy is not only found among serial killers, it's also found among just sort of everyday people who happen to not have much of a conscience and can therefore make it pretty far in politics and business and other things like that. He explores what it means to be a psychopath, I believe. A few years ago I read a book called The People of the Lie, and that book had a similar premise. So I'm really curious to know how this compares to that one. I thought The People of the Lie was super fascinating. I also have a true crime book called Tinseltown: Murder, Morphine, and Madness at the Dawn of Hollywood. This follows 1920 Hollywood, in which actor and director William Desmond Taylor was murdered, and it was a crime that went unsolved for nearly a century. And the one book that doesn't satiate my morbid curiosity, Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. Brené Brown is a vulnerability researcher, which seems very niche, but I have so many friends who've read this book and love this book, and I've been meaning to read a Brené Brown book forever, and I wanted to start at the beginning. This is her first one. The subtitle of this book says, How the Courage to be Vulnerable Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent, and Lead. Back to the fiction books. I got 2 Lucinda Riley books. They were The Girl on the Cliff and The Midnight Rose. These, I think, are her highest rated on Goodreads. I've been meaning to read Lucinda Riley forever because she's often compared to Kate Morton, and I've had plenty of friends say to me, Katie, if you love Kate Morton and you need a Kate Morton fix, but you've read all her books, which I have, pick up Lucinda Riley. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to pick up these books. Like Kate Morton, I think that she flips between time periods, and I think there's some gothic elements, perhaps mysterious elements as well. The Girl on the Cliff takes place in Ireland, and it follows the forbidden friendship between two girls and the unraveling of a family secret, which actually sounds quite a lot like Kate Morton. And The Midnight Rose, this takes place during the heyday of the British Raj, so India, England, and that relationship. Anahita and this woman moved to England, and then 90 years later, a young American film star finds herself somehow enmeshed in a secret history. Anahita's great-grandson is learning secrets about his family's past. So once again, some family secrets, some mystery. I'm really looking forward to trying my hand at Lucinda Riley. This past December, I read Winter Solstice by Rosalind Culture, and it made me want to pick up all of Rosalind Culture's books. And I saw The Shell Seekers and September on Book Outlet, and so I grabbed them up. Rosalind Culture reminds me a little bit of Kate Morton without the mysteries, but just really lovable, warm-hearted characters and a great story. This book, The Shell Seekers, is probably her most famous and what catapulted her into stardom. Writing stardom. The Shell Seekers is about an old woman at the end of her life who owns a painting that was painted by her father that is now worth a lot of money, and her kids all have ideas about what they want her to do with this painting, and she has ideas for herself. That's the very basic premise, at least from what I understand on the back of the book. And then September is about a woman who is going to throw some sort of garden party. No, a dance planned for September. And the invitation goes out in the spring, so that's when it starts. That's when the book starts, is in the spring. And then all these people gather for the dance. I don't know much more than that. But I think I will try and pick up The Shell Seekers this summer and September in September. Last handful of books, guys. First we have a middle grade by Claire Vanderpool named Navigating Early. Claire Vanderpool wrote the book Moon Over Manifest, which won the Newbery Medal. This one is a Prince honor book, and Prince is actually a young adult award, but I'm pretty sure this is middle grade because on the back it says it's for ages 10 and up. I like that they include the and up because, of course, I am nowhere near 10 years old, but I still enjoy a good middle grade, and I really like Claire Vanderpool's writing. This is kind of a Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn kind of tale. It's about two boys who go on a quest to find a black bear on the Appalachian Trail. I also picked up Beatrice Williams' Along the Infinite Sea. I've never read a Beatrice Williams book, but I hear her talked about every once in a while by Anne from The Modern Mrs. Darcy. And this book takes place in Georgia, although it looks like it takes place on the European coast somewhere, but no, it's just Georgia. It's about two women, Pepper and Annabelle. Both of them are trying to escape some unsavory aspects of their lives, and somehow they become intertwined. Another very summary book by an author I've wanted to try for a very long time is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The premise of this book sounds a lot to me like that one Tom Hanks movie where he becomes friends with a volleyball. For whatever reason, the name of that movie is not coming to mind. However, I do know that in that movie, he somehow ends up returning home and finds his wife remarried. Well, this book is a lot like that, in that this young couple is married and they have a very wonderful relationship, and then on their 1-year anniversary, the husband is in a helicopter and the helicopter disappears. And then life just keeps moving for this woman, and she ends up getting remarried. But then her first husband returns, and I'm sure drama ensues. I have heard that Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of those sweet spot women's fiction authors where it's a very breezy, easy to read, goes down smooth kind of novel, but explores some deeper themes. So the premise sounds a little silly, but I've also heard that she's pretty wonderful. And I think she's got a new book coming out too that's very different from her past books. That's what I've heard. Pat Conroy's The Prince of Tides. This is an epic family saga that takes place in the South. It spans 40 years in the life of this family and follows in particular twins, Tom and Savannah, and their struggle to triumph over the dark and tragic legacy of the extraordinary family into which they were born. I hear really, really, really good things about this book. Some people list it as one of their all-time favorites. This sounds like it's just going to be a really fabulous book. I love a good family drama. And finally, a little World War II historical fiction. This one's called Everyone Brave is Forgiven by Chris Cleave. Chris Cleave is the author of Little Bee, for those of you who recognize that title. I have never read Little Bee, although I've always kind of wanted to. Everyone Brave is Forgiven, like I said, is a World War II novel. It takes place in London starting in 1939 and is kind of a love story that was inspired by Chris Cleave's grandparents' real love story. When books are like $5 to start out with, and then there's like a 30% off sale on top of that, and then they offer free shipping, I'm a goner. Like, how can I say no to that? I'm such a sucker. I'm such a sucker. So that was my book haul. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I gotta go. It's Memorial Day weekend. My husband's family is coming into town. They're on their way right now, so they should get here shortly, and I don't really want to be sitting in front of the camera when they get here because that's a little bit embarrassing. So I'm gonna sign off here. I hope you guys are having a great end of May. With that, I will talk to you all later. Bye! Welcome back to my husband, who insists on blowing raspberries but won't get in front of the camera himself.